discussion in the public session today about crime in Houston. And we're here to release the final crime statistics for 2012 and to look at the longer-term crime trends for Houston. The overall crime rate is down nearly 8% in the last 3 years. This number is based on a comparison of Part 1 Uniform Crime Reports, or UCR, for the 3 years before and after the start of 2010. Again, I repeat, crime is down nearly 8% in the last 3 years. There were declines noted in each of the 7 Part 1 reporting categories: murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, theft, and auto theft. Now, these numbers provide a clear indication of overall crime trends in Houston than the usual one-year snapshots. We need to look at trends over time. I believe they're contributing factors, including the commitment of our hard-working men and women in blue. I think it's critical to have greater citizen awareness and interaction with the police in crime prevention, and the recognition that we are a global cyber village, and we are surrounded by the tools of technology which can help us in solving crime. The one-year comparison of UCR Part 1 violent and nonviolent crime shows an overall crime rate that remained flat in 2012 as compared to 2011. A year ago, the local murder rate dropped to its lowest point in more than 4 decades. There's always going to be work to be done, and the overall crime statistics are meaningless to someone who has been the personal victim of a crime. And each of us standing here understands that. If it happens to you, that's one crime too many. But we want to continue to send the message that this is a safe city, that we take these issues very seriously, and that we work every day to make sure that all types of crime in Houston are addressed. HPD targets hotspots. HPD works with citizens to try to identify where crime is beginning to rise up so that we can put it back down again. But each of us as citizens has a responsibility to do our own part. Most of the crimes that happen in this community are crimes of opportunity. If you leave a purse under the seat of your car, if you leave a laptop in the car, if you leave, I've been victim of this, I leave used to leave change for parking meters. I don't park anymore. Someone usually drives me, but change for parking meters in the well of the car. And had windows popped over the years where just, very expensive window to replace for $5 worth of quarters. We make ourselves vulnerable. We have to do our part as citizens because we know that the police will do theirs. I'm very happy to be joined by the chair and co-chair of our Public Safety Committee of City Council, Mayor Pro Tem Gonzalez and Councilmember Cohen, and also the Chief of Police. And I know the Chief would like to say a few things about our crime rate here in Houston, what's going on.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Certainly, I want to start off by saying the reason that I believe that we have achieved some of these results, I certainly have to thank the men and women of the Houston Police Department for being diligent and working hard, and their commitment to trying to make this city a safer city. 2, I want to thank the public, because without their help, we certainly couldn't be successful. By education campaigns and people protecting themselves and their property certainly has assisted us. Organizations like Crime Stoppers have assisted. And last but not least, I want to thank Mayor Parker for assisting me in getting me the resources that I need to do my job. 2011 was a banner year, record year. That was the lowest Part 1 crime rate since 1998. 2012, we pretty much duplicated that. Because if you look at our overall Part 1 crime numbers, out of a total of 129,000 Part 1 crimes in 2011, we only increased by 60 crimes. So that's a zero flat percentage. So even though 2011 was the lowest since 1998, 2012 matched that. That's pretty unbelievable. and we've certainly had a good 3-year run. Now, like the mayor said, if you were a crime victim, one crime is too many to you, and we understand that. And certainly, there are challenges, some pockets around this city that gives us a little bit more difficulty than others. But I think that we have improved in our efficiency by using technology to react to these type of hotspots more quickly. Our forensics have improved to where it's evolving. Better fingerprint technology, DNA, is evolving every single day. That helps. And then you have to look at courts and corrections, because police are not independent of the rest of the criminal justice system. The one thing that I do know for sure, and all criminologists agree on this, 3 things must be present before crime takes place. You need a victim, you need a suspect, and you need an opportunity. At the Houston Police Department, we develop strategies to address all of them. So with that, thank you very much.
Questions about crime rate in Houston and or what we're doing about it? You know, the discussion earlier today, there's a citizen who was in here frustrated and talked about the number of crimes that had been committed in his immediate neighborhood over a 30-day period. It's a challenge for us because our records don't show those crimes being committed. Now that means that either the citizens are not reporting the crimes, and if they're not reported, we can't address them, or the numbers that are being exaggerated. And one of the challenges for us is that it's the good news and bad news of living in a high-tech society. People put things out in their neighborhoods, they have electronic bulletin boards, they Facebook, they tweet things out, and the numbers get exaggerated. One crime is too many, but we have to make sure that we address in a systematic way what is actually happening in communities, and citizens have to report what's going on. Any questions?
It does seem to be that the areas of property crimes, robbery and auto theft are the only ones that are increasing. That's understandable with people having economic issues. Is there a way to deal with that?
Well, just for a clarification, robbery is a violent crime. It's not considered a property crime. But if you look at our statistics over the past 3 years for robberies are down 19% since 2010, 11, and 12 versus 07, 08, 09. Burglaries, we've seen a decrease in those by 3%. And we have seen that decrease, that trend continue in 2010, 11, and 12 versus 7, 8, and 9. So all of those crimes have decreased. Now, to answer your second part of your question, what can we do more to address those particular issues? Well, certainly, educational campaigns, because property crimes is one of the most preventable crimes that takes place. If we do a good job of not leaving our valuables in plain view in our cars, and you know, we make sure that our homes have very good doors, double cylinder deadbolt locks, alarm systems if you can afford them, video surveillance systems if you can afford them, knowing your neighbor, all of those things help. You know, watching out for each other are all effective crime reduction strategies. So, and when it comes to violent crimes, be aware of your surroundings. You know, not carrying large sums of cash on you when you're in shopping malls. Try to take someone with you. Have a plan when you leave the store. You know, your keys in your hand. All of those things that personal safety tips, help us.
Chief, I believe it's true that we have some very prolific burglars too. A handful of individuals can commit a huge
Yes.
These are pros.
You're exactly right. The recidivism rate for property crimes are much, much higher for violent crimes. Even though we all know that murder is the most egregious crime, heinous crimes in our society, people who commit murder usually only commit those type of crimes once. People that commit property crimes such as burglaries, auto theft, breaking into cars, they do it multiple times. And we have seen that when we catch an individual that's responsible for a string of burglaries, normally it's a string of 25, 30 burglaries that they have already committed before we're successfully able to capture them. Also, property crimes, people serve less jail time, less prison time. So recidivism rate is high, less time served in jail and prison, so they get out and do it again. And many of these individuals have substance abuse problems, which certainly needs to be addressed.
One of the other reasons that burglary is up, the high price of gold makes it very, very tempting. And the Public Safety Committee has been addressing the issue of precious metal dealers. We believe we have a gap in ordinance where we really need to crack down on people who, it's a cottage industry, it's sprung up everywhere. We buy jewelry. Well, a lot of that jewelry doesn't belong to the people who are selling it, and we're bringing our ordinances forward to try to close off that loophole, crack down.
Do you have reason to believe that this trend, this downward trend will continue, or is this just the low point in a natural cycle?
Well, we certainly know as law enforcement professionals, crime rates are cyclical. And that's why we need to monitor and evaluate those in longer trends, not just 1 year. That's certainly too short. But most criminologists will study crimes in 10 to 15-year increments. And what you have to do is go back as a researcher when you're looking at crime trends, whether they're up or down, what public policy was in place at the time that they increased? Were laws different in the penal code? What was the incarceration rate? All of those things do have a factor that's beyond the control of the police. But there are some variables that we do control, and we have to do a good job on those. So it's multiple facets.
What do you say to people, Chief, there are a lot of people who seem, even though you look at the numbers and they're like, it's flat, it's whatever, they seem to perceive that crime is increasing, or that there's more problems in their neighborhood, and even if you show the numbers to them, seem unconvinced. How do you address that?
Well, that's called addressing the fear of crime. First, you do have to give them empirical data and the facts of what's going on in their particular neighborhood. You have to educate them on keeping themselves and their property safe, encourage them to visit our website. We encourage them to contact us to do crime prevention seminars in their neighborhoods. I'll be going to one tomorrow night, and I get that question quite a bit. This weekend is a good example, and our police and clergy alliance. Not only will the clergy be there, but there will be community groups, civic club groups, our PIP organizations, and it's open to the general public. And this is a time for us to reinforce our commitments with each other and our lines of communications and what we need to do as partners to keep this city safe. But the fear of crime is very, very difficult, because if it happens to you, it's difficult for you to believe that you or your neighborhood is not safe if the crime happens to you.
It's important to remember that even with the very difficult economy that we've had, unlike many, many other American cities, we didn't lay off a single police officer, and we have had a very aggressive schedule of cadet classes and full cadet classes.
Yes, ma'am.
And we are doing our best to make sure that we continue to replenish our force, which, again, a lot of cities have not been able to do.
Back to the gold theft you mentioned, are there any ideas on the table yet to closing that loophole?
There is, and I believe the ordinance is posted, is it not, Councilor? We have an ordinance. In fact, I should point that out. I have there's a new spot on the city's main webpage, on the front of the webpage, where it shows the ordinances that are under contemplation. Doesn't mean that we'll actually pass it or that when it will move, but it gives the public a window in what we're working on down here. And that precious metal ordinance is there, and it's been discussed in committee very recently.
Yes, it's been before committee twice already, and we've taken, are considering recommendations made by the Precious Metals Unit within the Houston Police Department so that we could try to give them the necessary tools via ordinance so that they could better address this issue, because these crimes, due to the price of gold and silver and other metals, just continues to make it a lucrative market, so we're trying to cut down on that.
What are some of the, I know it's on the website, but can you share some of the?
Sure. There's 11, I believe it's 11 suggestions or recommendations that are being made. One of them, for example, is to ensure that we get, for example, a fingerprint when a person comes to sell items, very similar to what we do with scrap metal, under the scrap metal ordinance. You know, make sure they have obviously valid identification and a current photograph as well. And make sure that they're reporting. Currently, there is no oversight, similar to what we do with pawn shops, for example, where they have to report the sale of some of these metals, the description and a photograph of the items, so we can better track the point where somebody potentially is selling a stolen item and then selling it to a vendor. We could better identify the piece, because once it's melted down, for example, I mean, we've lost the ability to track that item.
It's actually harder to sell a piece of copper pipe than it is to sell a piece of gold jewelry right now, because we've had such a problem over the years with metal thefts of copper. So we've cracked down on it, and if you take a truckload of segments of copper pipe, you have to give a picture and a fingerprint and so forth.
Any stats yet on how much that is accounted for the home thefts and the break-ins and the increase in that area?
There's been some, there's been a number of crimes over $10,000 in theft, so we think those in particular are related to these type of issues. So as the mayor stated, we're working on it. We're being proactive in addressing the issue, and so we look forward to bringing something before the mayor that, for her consideration, that we feel will be effective and will help address this. And so that's where we're at right now. As the mayor stated, transparency has been important. We've shared that with the general public for comment, and we'll continue to work through it.
I mean, we just had a meeting yesterday.
Correct. We just brought the item for additional review before the Public Safety Committee, and so we'll continue to have that dialogue.
Jury is number one, theft items and these burglaries. And the reason why precious metal is so important to some of these thieves, because it's melted down within a matter of hours. So the precious metal or your jewelry piece that's stolen from your home is someone else's ring or or other piece of jewelry in just a matter of days, and the jewelry is melted down in a matter of hours. It's something that it's not traceable, doesn't have a serial number. Flat screen TVs are mounted to the wall. Thieves don't like carrying them out. A lot of thieves walk, ride bicycles. Even when it comes to electronics, iPhones, iPads can be traced. So we certainly have seen a spike in precious metal thefts.
Chief, you mentioned several factors that control crime rates. From what you see right now, do you have reason to believe that the factors are in place to continue this trend downward, or is it unknown, or what's the outlook?
Well, that's certainly part of my grade, and my boss standing here, I'm gonna say yes. We try very hard to make sure that we constantly work on those three factors that can cause a crime. Myself and my command staff meet bi-weekly, and we go over every hotspot, every crime that happened in the city. So our 24-hour 7 Crime Center is a very, very useful tool that's updated every 6 hours, and it's actually real-time crime reporting. So when we start to see on a daily basis, we can adjust our resources and target areas that we can, that we see that are trending in crimes.
Chief, on a different topic, I don't know if you've been briefed about this, but this morning there was a gentleman at public session who was talking about being pulled over by officers, told to get out of the car, spread eagle on the ground, handcuffed, thrown into the police car, and never explained why he was being detained. His children were in the car, his car was being loaded onto a tow truck, and through it all, he was never told, you know, why was he handcuffed, why was he being held, what the circumstances were. I know that you may not have all the details, but does that sound like HPD protocol to you?
Now, the other half of the story was that before he was taken away from the scene, before his car was towed, the officers got more information and released him. They had gotten information about a crime. He was driving a vehicle very similar to, apparently, to the one that was reported. And until the officers got more information, that showed that this guy didn't match this description, they held him, and I'm kind of dropping this on the chief blind.
Well, yeah, I realize that, but, you know, I'm just
What
wondering.
would be, you know, if the officers pull over someone and then they realize that they've got the wrong guy, what should they do?
Well, what she described is our felony traffic stop, which officers are trained to do. There's certain situations, and when people are suspected of committing certain crimes, the detaining or stopping officer may not know the identity, but they're given the information or limited information over their police computer, over their radio. So they're taught to do that, regardless of the other people in the car, regardless of the kids in the car. Officer safety is paramount, because if the officer is safe, then we can protect the citizen that we're trying to detain too. But they're taught to do that. They're taught to get the person out of the car, get